For best experience, use headphones. Our story begins on an unknown floor in the tower, where an adorable cat merchant is trying to peddle his wares. No one can withstand the charms of such a cute wandering merchant. He wastes no time introducing his product. It's a simple cherry tomato. His customers aren't impressed at all. They can buy these anywhere. And that's where his pitch begins. He explained to the humans that they were not paying enough attention to such a miraculous item, and they should examine it with their status window. Magical cherry increased 0.1 MP for 10 minutes. Decomposes 10 grams of fats. Shelf life 30 days. At first glance, the humans didn't see anything special about the cherries. 0.1 MP for 10 minutes, there was nothing special about that. But they quickly caught on to its most important aspect. By eating such a simple cherry, they would be able to burn 10 grams of fat. And the adorable merchant knew he had them hooked. He explained that they sold for 0.5 tower coins each. And the pandemonium began. The humans each wanted as many as they could get their hands on. They each were looking to buy as many as 300 apiece. When they realized there wouldn't be enough to go around, that's when the price wars began. One smart human realized that the most important thing he could do was to secure the source of the miraculous item. But the merchant quickly explained that that information was a secret. The scene shifts to the secret garden on an unknown level of the tower. Our protagonist is breaking a sweat harvesting in the fields with his adorable farmhands. They had put in a hard day's work and was wrapping up the day's tomato harvest. The best thing to do after a long day's work is to have a nice refreshing beverage. But I'm not sure if cherry tomatoes, and honey straight from a bee's mouth, would do it for me. But everyone tipped it back and didn't come up for air until it was all drained. Vitality drink. Honey mixed, cherry tomato juice. It seemed the protagonist believed there was no better way of living. And so did his adorable farmhands. An uninspiring quest smacked the protagonist on the head. Additional quest: distribute the honey water to the managers of the tower. Compensation: none. The protagonist didn't seem pleased with such a quest. The wandering cat merchant from earlier made his grand appearance on the farm. He had returned with the profits from his earlier excursion into the tower. But the merchant was a hard-working individual and peddling was his game. He had no interest in playing around on the farm when there were tower coins to be made. He insisted that the black bunny resupply him immediately. He had no time to waste. The protagonist felt that the cat being addicted to his new job was hilarious. On a random wall of the enclosure, the protagonist kept track of the time he had spent farming in the tower. This marked the 150th day of him being a farmer in the tower. His name was Park Sejun, and his class was Tower Farmer. Even though he was ready to rest for the day, he figured if his number one employee wanted to make a trip back out into the world, that he could at least do his part. Our journey begins here with Park Sejun, who had been lost in the tower for 150 days. During that time, he created a farm of unparalleled magnitude and ingenuity. These pages of the story are taken from his personal diary, chronicling his remarkable tale of survival during his time lost in the tower. 10 years ago, a towering structure emerged in the heart of Gangnam, Seoul, South Korea, reaching towards the heavens above. The day it appeared was no different from any other, unremarkable in every way. However, it was not only South Korea that experienced this strange phenomenon, as towers began to appear all over the globe. As many as 100 of these towers materialized seemingly out of nowhere. Each nation scrambled to investigate this sudden and mysterious phenomenon. It quickly became clear that these structures were unlike anything ever seen before. Towering 990 meters into the sky, they were constructed from an impossibly strong material that even nuclear bombs couldn't penetrate. Then one day, a group of adventurers emerged from the base of the tower. News reporters surrounded them. The world wanted to know what had happened. They explained that everybody who had made it inside the tower were mysteriously sucked in by a black hole which deposited them on the first floor of the tower. The black towers once again captivated the public's attention. Information on the tower flowed freely around the world, as people began to emerge everywhere. It turned out that all the towers around the world connected to a singular tower inside. Each person who was kidnapped by the tower became awakened when deposited on the first floor. They were then each allowed to choose their roles going forward, either a damage dealer or a magic class. The first floor was a safe haven, a place to train and prepare for what lay ahead. Upon climbing to the second floor is where things got serious. Monsters awaited, but with great peril came great opportunities. As the floors was cleared, you would gain access to amazing rewards. Among those rewards there was a high chance that you would attain a golden ticket. These golden tickets were essentially useless to the awakened, seeing as how they allowed anyone to enter or exit the tower. But the world became instantly interested in such an item, which allowed anyone access to the treasures that awaited in the mysterious Black Tower. These tickets became a hot commodity. As the days went on, the price skyrocketed. Who wouldn't want to go into the tower and make their fortunes in gold? The tower was the thing to talk about in any town you visited around the world. You couldn't go grocery shopping without having to have a conversation about it. That's where Park Sejun comes in. He was 26 years old. And he agreed with the little old lady at the grocery store that the tower was a dangerous way to make a living. But the tower was all he could think about. All his time and effort went towards raising enough money to gain access to the tower. But so far all he had saved was 12 million won. That was a little more than 5% of the 200 million that would be needed to buy a golden ticket. In reality, he knew that this was a dream that he was never going to be able to achieve. But he was determined never to give up on that dream. He would push through no matter what. The vegetables he bought for cheap at the grocery store was part of his scheme to raise the money needed. The price of produce has skyrocketed in recent months. Sejun stood on the street, daydreaming about his plans to enter the tower, become famous and propose to his favorite idol. It turns out today may be his lucky day to make those dreams a reality. A black hole materialized in his vicinity. Black holes hadn't appeared in the world since the first generation tower awakened, was taken to begin a new life. But as he stood there, begging the black hole to consume him, and send him on the journey of a lifetime, the hole began to close. It appeared. The black hole had no interest in such a giant need. But Sejun had been waiting his whole life for this. He wasn't going to miss this opportunity. If the black hole wasn't going to take him, he would just have to force his way into the tower. He landed face first on the other side. Sejun was concerned with only one fact. Had he finally made it to the tower? Was he on the path that would change his life forever? But his disappointment was clear on his face as he examined his surroundings. He could not see any of the things that the awakened said you would see inside the tower. He was alone in a cavern. The rays of the sun shined through a hole in the ceiling. Sejun screamed at the top of his lungs. "Where the hell is this?" The view panned out, showing him in the middle of nowhere. An ominous tower stood on an isolated mountainside, off in the distance. The black dragon who lived in the black tower inside a black tower stared into his crystal ball. He could sense there was a disturbance in the tower. And as the manager of the tower, he would solve this problem. Sejun remembered back to all the YouTube videos he'd watched. The awakened explained that the black tower had shiny, spacious palaces, and the tower was overflowing with items to spend your coin on. On a talk show, a cocky awakened explained that the training grounds is the most important thing on the first floor. You seriously must put your time and effort in there if you wish to survive the higher floors. Sejun was an expert on information brought back from the Black Tower. How did he end up in a cave that had no exit? And none of the things that he knew the tower possessed. No matter how much he screamed, no one came to his rescue. He was lost and alone in an empty cave. Sejun was snapped out of his endless depression by his morning alarm. He had been trapped in this cave for over a day. Lucky for him, he had gone grocery shopping before invading the tower. There was 1 bottle of water, 27 cherry tomatoes, 10 green onions, 7 pumpkin sweet potatoes, and 1 washed apple. He chose the apple to start him off, chewing it down to the seeds. But 1 apple wouldn't be enough. So, next he chose to eat a raw sweet potato. And even though he preferred his sweet potatoes cooked, a raw sweet potato occasionally wasn't half bad. But he really should be more careful. Choking to death would be an awful way to die in this cave. Sejun laid on his rock, pondering the outcome of his future. His food wouldn't last very long. His choices were to sit there and die or come up with a solution that would allow him to survive until he was rescued. And since he was the type of person that never gave up on his dreams, he hopped up and decided that he would have to grow his food if he was going to survive. It's what he originally planned to do with the vegetables in the first place. So not much had changed. He had quite a few vegetables and fruits at his disposal. He started off by planting the apple seeds. Sejun planted the green onions in the ground and saved the leaves to eat later. He planted 3 whole cherry tomatoes and 2 sweet potatoes. Nothing was going to stop him from surviving. He would make it out of this situation. And as he stood there, marveling over his work, a monster roared nearby. This meant he was most definitely not on the first floor, since monsters didn't appear there. He was plunged into darkness as a blue moon filled the sky. The roar of the beast caused him pain to his very core. As he trembled on the ground, unable to move his body, a shadow passing over him brought his attention back to the sky where a silhouette of a dragon passed by. He passed out thinking what a beautiful sight the black dragon was. He awoke to his phone informing him that he had slept for over 2 days. Sleeping on the ground for so long had done him no favors. He propped his back up against a tree in the middle of the clearing, until he realized there were no trees in the middle of this clearing. His green onions had shot up in the 2 days he was asleep. He heard stories that they grew big, but this was ridiculous. He reasoned that the tower was affecting their growth. He wasn't sure what power it was, but he was thankful. The green onions weren't the only thing that showed up. There were over 52 tomato seedlings in the shadow of the green onions. This wouldn't do. He had to make sure they got their fair share of sunlight. Sejun would have to keep the giant green onions in check if he ever expected to see the tomatoes grow. Sejun harvested the onions down to their stalks. He decided there was no better time to try them out than now. The raw onions set his mouth ablaze. He dived towards the spring, looking for relief. If he was ever interested in something spicy, these would do the trick. He decided to have a snack while he allowed his new food source to dry out on the rock around him. An interesting fact about the tower was that the sun never set there. Each floor had a different cycle in which the moon blocked out the sun. This effect was known as blue moon. The blue moon phenomenon only started to appear on the 10th floor and higher. This was definitely not a good sign for Sejun. And even though the information on the higher floors of the tower were limited, no one had ever mentioned the sighting of a dragon. The Phoenix Guild, one of the tower's major guilds, had documented their journey being the first group to clear all the way to floor 37. Any information past floor 30 was top secret information only a few guilds possessed. YouTube was full of information about the floors below level 30. Floors 2 through 10 were dedicated to the skeleton soldiers. You would find goblins on floors 11 through 20. 21 to 30 was when you ran into the orcs. And if you believe rumors, the spider monsters dwelled on floors above 31. There were no stories about dragons, lizards, or anything similar. Sejun wondered how high in the tower he'd been deposited. A raindrop splashed on his face. But rain was rare here. When he looked up, a bunny monster was drooling at the mouth, staring down towards him. Out of nowhere, the rabbit leaped into the cavern. Sejun ran towards the rabbit, hoping it would survive the fall. The bunny bounced off his head and headed straight to the green onions. I guess it's a good thing he was drooling over the green onions instead of Sejun. He realized that the bunny was hungry as it pointed towards his food source. There was plenty to go around, so he ripped some up and passed it over. The cute little guy nibbled away. He was totally in love with this new food. The onions grew so much that he would have to harvest them at least twice a day. After offering his new friend as much as he would like to eat, it decided it should invite its friend down. This is the reason why you never feed strays. Good luck getting rid of them. Sejun stared up to another bunny making the leap of faith. This one was wearing an apron, where she was storing a watering pail and a sun hat which she passed over to what was now obvious to his eyes, a male bunny. These two were most definitely a married couple. Dear Diary, today I was accompanied in the cave by a pair of rabbits. Their presence gave me a sense of comfort, and I couldn't help but feel that it was a sign that things would be okay. That's all the news for today, Park Sejun. The two rabbits were most definitely workaholics. They worked so fast that Sejun barely had the ability to contribute. The tools that the bunnies possessed made them very efficient. The pair was an unstoppable team. As the day came to a close, the two made it clear that they were interested in living in the cave with him. They turned on the bunny eyes, and pain shot through his chest. There was no way he would be able to turn them away. He made it clear that they would have to help with keeping the farm up. That was all they needed to hear as they jumped up and hugged him. They were full of appreciation. He was most definitely manipulated into this situation. But he believed he was the one coming out on the good end of the stick in this deal. Dear Diary, my two new bunny friends possess items I have never seen the likes of before. The husband rabbit possesses a watering pail that never ran out of water. And I'd put money on the fact that the wife's apron was magical. Every time I turn around, she pulls some tool or other out of her pocket. Diary, I'm totally jealous of the equipment that the two possess. Catch you later, Park Sejun. Before Sejun knew it, the two had completed the green onion harvest. All that was left was to dry them out. There wasn't much progress in the sweet potato department, but the cherry tomatoes were definitely growing thicker. The two bunnies wondered whether they passed the test to become full-time residents of the cave. Sejun gave them the all clear. And in turn, the two wasted no time making themselves at home. They dashed off in the opposite direction. Sejun had no idea what they were up to. The wife bunny was definitely the foreman. She gave her husband directions, as he tirelessly dug away. A hobbit hole formed before Sejun's very eyes. Husband bunny had done an amazing job. He had nearly worked himself to death, but he survived. But it seemed there would be no rest for the weary. Looks like wifey has other plans. Sejun waved as the poor guy was dragged away. But in reality, he totally envied him. Being alone in the cave wasn't Sejun's cup of tea. But now that he had new hard-working friends, things were looking up. Sejun lay back on the bed of onion leaves. Zero cares in the world. That was until he felt a sharp pain cutting him in the back. He immediately stopped, dropped, and rolled. His water bottle was magnifying the sun rays to the point where the onions were starting to catch fire. Being alone definitely wasn't good for Sejun. He decided to act out an episode from his favorite YouTube survival show. The conditions within the Black Tower were incredibly harsh. Despite the challenges, my hope remained steadfast. Thankfully, I had some green onions and a plastic bottle of water with me, which proved to be a much-needed lifeline. He realized that the plastic bottle, with its curved surface, could act as a converging lens and potentially be used to start a fire. But it wasn't as easy as it looked. No matter how hard he tried, he just couldn't get it to light. He continued to try until Mr. Bunny came out of his new home looking as if he had the life sucked out of him. The two came to his rescue. He controlled the lens, and they stoked the fire. And before they knew it, the leaves caught ablaze. The three were ecstatic. Sejun wasted no time popping a stalk of onion onto the fire. He had wanted to eat them cooked since the moment they started to grow. And now was his chance. After carefully roasting them, he peeled away the burnt parts and carefully popped the leaf into his mouth. He sat there, his body trembling from pure delight, until he couldn't hold it in anymore. The onion was so sweet it induced a sugar rush straight to his head. He described the feeling in his mouth to that of a wild green horse, running wild in an endless field. He instantly started to cook more, and the bunnies joined in, wondering what the fuss was about. It didn't take long for the two of them to also become sugar zombies. Dear Diary, after finally being able to nourish myself with a warm meal, I was overcome with a sense of contentment that led me straight into a restful sleep. Survivor man, Park Sejun. Sejun woke the next morning, fully rested as he cleaned up, preparing for a new day. The bunnies have been hard at work. The green onion harvest had been completed. They had also watered the cherry tomatoes and the sweet potatoes. Dear Diary, the past few days have been a whirlwind of activity. After discovering how to start a fire using the plastic bottle and some dry kindling, we used the green onions to install torches around the cave. The addition of light has been a true blessing, allowing me to move about freely at all hours. But something truly miraculous happened while installing a torch near our pond. As I shone the light on the water's surface, a fish suddenly leaped out and followed the path of my torch. Until that moment, I had never seen any signs of life in the pond. I am incredibly grateful for this new source of protein and the unexpected bounty that has come our way. Torch fisherman, Park Sejun. Sejun slow roasted his first fish over the fire. As soon as he was ready, he dug in. It was the tastiest thing he had ever eaten. To his shock, his two companions were staring at him with googly eyes. It never crossed his mind that they were meat eaters. But he guessed they were monsters after all. So, he passed the fish around. Dear Diary, I apologize for constantly bombarding you with new developments, but something else significant has occurred. A few days after the fish sighting, the blue moon made its appearance once again. It dawned on me that this phenomenon repeats itself every 30 days from this floor, which could not have come at a better time. All of my electronic devices have officially run out of power, and I can no longer use my phone to track the date. However, thanks to the moon, I now have a reliable method of keeping track of time. It may be an old-fashioned method, but it is a surefire way to measure the passage of days. Today marks the official 61st day that I have spent lost within this tower. Goodbye for now, Park Sejun, dear diary. I apologize for this double entry, but I wanted to mention how grateful I am for the bunnies who have helped me establish a consistent day and night sleep schedule. By following their lead, I am able to keep my body clock in perfect sync. However, that is not the reason for my entry today. A few days ago, something truly remarkable occurred. I became an uncle. The arrival of my little nieces and nephews has been an absolute joy, even though their father, Daddy Bunny, appears to be struggling with the new responsibilities of parenthood. Every day, the little ones sprint out of their home to greet me, showering me with kisses and love. As their parents take a much-needed break, I have the honor of babysitting and spending time with my adorable little family members. Beloved bunny uncle, Park Sejun. Sejun offered to babysit the little ones, so husband and wife could get some much-needed rest over breakfast. He snatched up all the babies and ran off to view the pretty flowers that were growing on the tomato plants. The little ones ran off playing in the field as he examined the progress of the crops. Since there were no natural pollinators, they would have to do all the work by hand. The life of a farmer was rough on the body. Sejun thought he was being a little greedy, but bees would make this process much easier. One of the little ones was getting into the action of hand pollinating, but he was doing it a little wrong. As Sejun tended to him, something caught his eye. After all their hard work, their tomato plants was bearing fruit. And it turned out to be the day right before the blue moon. Now that he had a family to look out for, they had to be extra careful. He extinguished all the torches, and he used the group of rocks to shield the fire from above. Sejun wasn't taking any chances. He had crafted a set of camouflage clothing that should also keep him warm. He sent his bunny family away as the blue moon approached. The howls in the night never ceased during the blue moon, since he had no way of keeping track of minutes. Every minute felt like an hour to him. Things went south as Sejun was hoping he would have another uneventful night. Something large enough to shake the ground was heading in their direction. He hid inside, unaware of the giant that loomed just out of reach. The blue moon had attracted a fearful beast to Sejun's front door. He could see its shadow stretching across the field. Luckily, Sejun had gone undetected. But he made a terrible decision to move somewhere more secluded. As he reached for his backpack, all of its contents came spilling out onto the ground. And that was all it took for the giant red bear to poke his head in for a closer look. As the two made eye contact, they both screamed as if their life depended on it. The baby bunnies tried desperately to wake their uncle. But where the baby bunnies failed, Papa Bunny most definitely would succeed. He slapped the living daylights out of Sejun. He hopped up, looking around for the horrors from the night before. His relief was apparent that it was all over. The whole bunny family was clustered around. They were seriously concerned. He thought back to the night before, and the giant monster that poked its head into their home. All he could remember was the pure terror of its presence, and then nothing. He told the bunnies how he had almost gotten killed by a monster. And then shock set in. Mama Bunny immediately got to work. She rushed to get the fire started. Sejun needed food in his belly as soon as possible. She brought him a roasted fish as the family gathered around, worried about his health. The warm meal was doing the trick. Last night's mishap was not good for their future. The monster knew where they were and could most definitely return. He had worked so hard to survive, and for it to all almost be gone in a blink of an eye. It really didn't sit well with him. But there really wasn't much he could do other than eat well and stay healthy. While examining the fields, Papa Bunny found something very interesting, and everyone needed to come and see. One of the cherry tomatoes was the most amazing shade of blue, and was as large as a golf ball. As he examined it, a status window popped in front of his face. You have successfully completed the quest to harvest a fruit containing the energy of the blue moon. Sejun was shocked by the appearance of the window. Your amazing achievement has attracted the attention of the tower manager. The tower manager is keeping an eye on you. The tower manager isn't happy. Sejun was puzzled by this. What had he done wrong? The tower manager has discovered you aren't a duly invited guest. The tower manager wants to hide its blunder. Sejun was shocked by this statement. A black hole had appeared, and he went through. How was that his fault? His shock turned to fury. If the tower manager didn't want him here, he could have sent him home before he spent 61 days surviving on scraps. The tower manager is wondering if it should kill you to eradicate the evidence. Sejun raged on and on about his accomplishments, and instead of being rewarded, he was being threatened. He stared at a blank window, wondering if maybe he had went too far. The tower manager has chosen to awaken you. Blue energy swirled up around his body. This was the moment he dreamed of all his life. Would he be a warrior or a wizard? The tower manager is assigning your job. You've become a tower farmer. He stood in the middle of the field, shocked. This was not the way it was supposed to be. How is this possible? Due to your job, you won't get sick. Due to your job, you will be close to nature. Due to your job, you will gain experience points when harvesting crops. The stasis window presented him with his stats. His talent was ordinary. All his stats were at 1. And he possessed no skills. His eye had caught on a single word. Ordinary. He pictured himself on a late-night talk show. The host explained to his audience that they had a special guest with them today. Sejun here cleared the tower with an ordinary talent. As he told them what his job was, roses surrounded his face. I'm the tower farmer. It was not going to go down this way. How could Sejun accept this outcome? He had not come all this way to be a farmer. His rage overwhelmed him, and he decided he would throw it all away. But as his eyes landed on his bunny family, he instantly came back to his senses. The family depended on him, and they had put all their trust in the person he was. This farm meant too much for him to throw it all away. The cherry tomato in his hand was the proof of their hard work. And with that, the decision was made. A tower farmer he was, and a tower farmer he would continue to be. Magical cherry tomato. Imbued with the energy of the blue moon. A cherry tomato cultivated in the tower is nutritious and tasty. However, now with the energy of the blue moon, it tastes even better. When consumed, it permanently increases your MP by 0.05. Cultivator. Tower Farmer Park Sejun. Shelf life. 30 days. Rank. E. He couldn't believe his very first item was something he created with his own hands. A permanent stat increase. Even though it was such a small amount, it had to be unheard of. The tower manager decided that he would have that tomato. The group celebrated their amazing achievement. The tower manager decided it was time to make his demands known. A quest has been triggered. Offer the fruit containing the energy of the blue moon to the tower manager. Reward: a job-related skill. Refusal: death. Dear diary, today a supreme being of this tower decided to threaten my life. Diary, there's really only one choice to make in such a situation. Hopefully I'll write back soon, Park Sejun. Sejun knew that the quest was nothing more than extortion in disguise. The tower manager was after his goods at any cost. His choices were to sit back and be used, or to stand up for himself. How dare this manager threaten his life, and to treat him like he was worthless trash. Sejun prostrated himself, offering the tomato up with no hesitations. Please spare my life. And with that, the extortion was complete. You have completed a quest. Quest reward: open. Sejun was so focused on the consequences of failing the quest, he overlooked the offering of a reward. Could it be possible that it wasn't just extortion? Quest reward: job-related skill. You have obtained sowing level 1. Slightly increases the chance of germination when a seed is planted. His disappointment radiated from his soul. This is most definitely extortion. What else could he expect? He was a tower farmer now. Sejun got right to work. The first thing you did when you got a new job was to level it up. Over the next few days, he harvested piranha from the pond to gain experience points. But such a method had its limits. The piranha was an important food supply. There was no way he was going to deplete that supply just for the sake of experience points. But today they would feast. Little guys, come and get it. The little ones wasted no time digging into the meal. Growing bunnies could seriously put food away. Dear diary, I used to believe that my priorities were aligned, but now I'm not so sure. I chose to ignore the significance of the cherry in exchange for my life, and I fear it was a mistake. Lately, I've been feeling like the tower manager might have some ill intentions towards me. I'm uncertain, but it's been on my mind. On the bright side, I recently discovered that my bunnies are a breed known as farmer white rabbits. Their species doesn't have any fighting abilities, which could be the reason I haven't heard of them before. I'm not sure how they ended up with me, but their presence has been a great comfort. If only I could communicate with them, I could uncover their story. Soon to be enslaved, Park Sejun. Their hard work had finally bared fruit. The cherry tomatoes were ready to harvest. Sejun was overwhelmed. This had been a long journey, but it was time to see if the work they put in was worth the effort. Sejun had the honor of picking the first cherry tomato. You have obtained a well-ripe magical cherry tomato. Your job experience points was slightly increased. You have attained 10 experience points. Magical cherry tomatoes. A cherry tomato cultivated in the tower is nutritious and tasty. When consumed, it decomposes 10 grams of fats and increases 0.1 MP for 10 minutes. A maximum of 10 effects can be stacked at the same time with a maximum duration of 1 hour. Cultivator. Tower farmer, Park Sejun. Shelf life: 30 days. Sejun had something special on his hands. He checked to make sure this was the same for all tomatoes. It turns out as long as the cherry tomato is ripe, the effect was given. If he picked the unripe tomato, he gained less experience points, and it was just a normal tasty cherry tomato. Picking the right ones wasn't an easy task. He would have to be very careful when choosing. You have leveled up. You have attained 1 bonus stat. Sejun had reached level 4 without much effort. As he went to have a taste of his first cherry tomato, he heard a persistent noise. It turns out he was being inconsiderate. They had all worked hard together. They should all share in the rewards at the same time. Papa Bunny was furious. Hopefully he will forgive Sejun for being selfish. It was finally time for them all to dig in. Jiao Mio Jiljiyo. Everyone chopped down at the same time. It was as if Sejun was teleported to a luscious, green field. A light sparked across the sky. The fresh scent of grass and the sweet sour taste. It was just like fireworks in the middle of summer. The taste brought him to tears. Mama Bunny wondered if he was okay. Daddy Bunny didn't know and didn't care. All bunny hands were on deck, harvesting and storing the day's tomato spoils. Sejun watched the family work as he prepared for bed. The little ones had grown so much. They were indeed Farmer White Rabbit kids. He tucked himself in and blocked out the sunlight with his night mask. The day had been a busy day, and he was going to get some much-needed rest. The tower manager chose a bad time to trigger an extortion quest. Sleeping wouldn't be enough to avoid these things. Sejun was startled out of his sleep. He hurriedly offered the manager the requested tomatoes. As he mumbled to himself about being forced to comply, his rewards continued to be unsatisfying. Quest reward job-related skill. You have obtained harvest level 1. Harvested fruits are obtained in optimal condition, even if they are slightly overripe or underripe. He turned his nose up at such a reward, but it wasn't long before he was singing its praise. Dear Diary, I had a recent experience where I thought I was scammed again, but it turned out to be quite amazing. The skill I received is going to be a huge time saver for me. It works like a charm. Whenever I harvest our crops, I get perfect results. Even if I accidentally harvest a green tomato, the skill activates and magically transforms it into a perfect one. On top of that, I always receive the maximum amount of experience points possible. I'm thrilled with this new skill and can't wait to see how it continues to benefit me in the future. Magical Harvester, Park Sejun, the tower manager was starting to get bold. He was demanding Sejun's crops without even offering a reward. Sejun made a bad decision given into such an arrangement. Once you start, it can only go downhill from there. The tower manager went from demanding 200 cherry tomatoes to 250 cherry tomatoes to 300 cherry tomatoes. But when he jumped to 500 cherry tomatoes without any reward, the line had been crossed. Sejun flat out refused. Dear Diary, today was a significant day for me as I finally stood up against the tower manager's unjust demands. It was a difficult decision to make, but I knew I had to put my foot down. I won't let anyone bully me into doing something I don't believe in, especially when it comes to the livelihood of my tomatoes. Although I can't be certain of the consequences of my actions, I am willing to take the risk. If the tower manager decides to retaliate and harm me, he can say goodbye to ever having another tomato from me again. This might be my final entry, but I am content with the decisions I have made. Sincerely, Park Sejun. The tower manager believed it could take what it wanted when it wanted. But Sejun was here to show it that wasn't the case. He put his foot down. He had already offered up hundreds of the magical tomatoes, where he received rewards that didn't align with their worth. No more. He would keep the tomatoes, and he and the bunnies would feast. Sejun informed the tower manager that they had to eat the magical tomatoes also to stay alive. He was told to stop protesting and to bring on the magical cherry tomatoes. The tower manager informed him that he had a you problem, and that's not a me problem. This one line made Sejun spiteful. He mumbled under his breath about his worth, about slaving away in the fields, suffering day in and day out, just to obtain a decent harvest. The tower manager says you've only sown the seeds. It asks you not to overreact to something that's not a big deal. And that there was the straw that broke the farmer's back. He was through having conversations with the manager. He went about his daily business, not paying attention to the ramblings of the greedy. He harvested onions and cooked dinner. All the while, the status system continued to pester him. He only decided to have a conversation when the manager decided to threaten him again. It says you might die. I'm not sharing my spoils with somebody who sees such little value in what I do. The tower manager says, isn't it the job of a tower farmer to do so? The tower manager says it is the manager, so you must listen to his orders. And that's the precise reason why he won't be receiving any tomatoes. Your mistake brought me here. And you forced me to be a farmer. And you don't appreciate my efforts? I'm starting to believe that you are a terrible manager. That one line hit the black dragon where it hurt. As he watched on through his crystal ball, Sejun were staring up in his direction, mocking him. The tower manager is angry because you ate the magical cherry tomato yourself. The tower manager says that he'll kill you right now if you don't do the quest. Sejun offered up 5 cherry tomatoes to the tower manager. He informed it that the kids needed to eat also, so this is all he would get. He was informed that this would be the only time that the tower manager would compromise. Sejun felt that they were making progress, and that the tower manager was a bit simple. Dear Diary, I can hardly believe that we're already on day 91 of being lost in the tower. It feels like time has been flying by. Tonight is my 4th blue moon and I can't help but feel a little uneasy. I really hope I make it through the night without any monster incidents like last time. If I do survive, I'll be sure to write again soon and let you know how everything went. If not, then this might be my final entry. Either way, thanks for listening to my ramblings until we meet again. Park Sejun. His YouTube knowledge informed him that if your MP was high enough, you could withstand the roar of the monsters. So, he continuously munched away, keeping himself topped off. This time, he finally saw the blue moon in action. Its beams shined down on the plants like fairy dust. And before his very eyes, a cherry tomato turned blue. With the way things were, there was a high chance that he would be the one eating that this time. The leaves of the sweet potatoes shine brightly. Sejun couldn't wait till the blue moon was over. He rushed over to dig up the sweet potato. Just as he thought, a blue moon sweet potato. Sweet potato imbued with the energy of the blue moon. A sweet potato cultivated in the tower is nutritious and tasty. However, now with the energy of the blue moon, it tastes even better. When consumed, it will increase your strength. 0.05 MP increase permanently. Cultivator. Tower farmer, Park Sejun. Shelf life. 30 days. Rank. E. He gained 50 experience points for harvesting the potato. And his harvest level 1 was maxed out. It most likely would level up soon. He picked the cherry tomato. He held the blue moon potato in one hand and a blue moon tomato in the other. He felt as if he held the world in his hands. It didn't take long for Greedy to show his face. A quest has been triggered. Offer the sweet potatoes containing the energy of the blue moon to the tower manager. Reward none. Refusal. Death. Not only did he want the sweet potato, but he also wanted the cherry tomato also. Sejun thought it was best that he completed the past quest. If he was lucky, the manager would forget about the good produce. The quest has been completed. The tower manager is happy with the basket full of magical cherry tomatoes. Sejun really thought he was slick. Just because the manager was stuffing his face full of cherry tomatoes didn't mean he didn't want to stuff his face with that yummy potato also. Sejun decided the manager wasn't so simple after all. But it seemed luck was on his side. The basket had done the trick. And the tower manager was willing to forget about the blue moon produced this time, but he demanded a rain check on the sweet potato. And without a second thought, he tossed the tomato in his mouth. The simple fireworks show, from before, was nothing compared to this grand extravaganza in his mouth. You've consumed a magical cherry tomato containing the energy of the blue moon. Your MP permanently increased by 0.05. He wrapped the potato in makeshift aluminum foil. Green onion leaves, that is. And tossed it straight into the fire. It finished cooking at the perfect time. The bunny family poked their head out of the hobbit hole. He presented the blue potato to all of them, sending them into a drooling fit. It wasn't much, but they would all share. But Papa Bunny wasn't having any of that. There was only one potato. And the master was going to be the one to eat it. The gesture touched Sejun deeply. He would have to keep the secret about eating the blue tomato earlier, to the day he died. He had no problem obliging Papa Bunny. He peeled the potato and shoved it right into his mouth, not thinking about the consequences of what a hot potato would do to you. He burned away his taste buds in one fell swoop, dropping the sweet potato to the ground. Papa Bunny saw his opportunity. The old man would have to be faster than that when there were a bunch of babies around. They all happily shoveled down the delicacy. And just like their master, up it came. Dear Diary, today I made an unwise decision, not thinking about the consequences. The lure of such an amazing treat stared me in the face. And because of my reckless ways, I lost it all. And worse than that, my actions caused the babies to hurt themselves. Bad Uncle, Park Sejun. Thanks for watching. We'll be back soon with another exciting installment, so stay tuned and hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss it. We'd love to continue this story. So let us know if you want to see the next part by liking this video.